Broadcasting, Dr. Robert Davis. Thanks for joining the Edge program.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for
Well,
inviting me.
I don't often get the opportunity to talk to neuroscientists, man. That is intriguing, man. Your book, Unseen Forces, the Integrated Science, Integration of Science, Reality, and You, which I have right here. Awesome, awesome book. Is every topic that I love. You address everything that I've been trying to get from. I'm trying to get a little bit from this guest and that guest, and this. Can I say Bible? I don't even know, man. But this book is awesome.
Don't let me stop you. Keep going. You can do
Okay,
the whole show.
and you can get this.
Yeah.
Go to this website right now and get this book. It has my full endorsement. You heard it from Daniel Ott.
And I didn't even pay you for the.
And check in the mail. There you go.
Thank you very much. It is getting excellent reviews from people I do respect, and who knows, it may be worth a read. But thank you for the compliment.
Well, Doctor, we're talking about unseen forces, man.
And please call me Bob or Robert.
Bob. I'm going to call you Bob. I just figured. Stream of consciousness there. I want to start out with just sort of introduce yourself to the audience, and really, I want to know if you could go back a little bit. Why you decided to be a neuroscientist? I know you're retired in that, and professor in that. So, give us a little history. Give us a little Bob history.
I'll get the boring stuff out of the way. I was always attracted to science, even the unexplained. I always question, like I think everybody does at some point in time or other. What is life? Why am I here? All of that, and we often forget all that stuff. It's like the wonder of being a child. You have those kind of questions, and then you lose sight of sometimes the bigger picture, the spiritual kinds of questions that I think I'm focusing on a little bit more as now that I'm in my retirement and approaching the age where we either have dust to dust and ashes to ashes, or we persist in some unearthly alternate realm of existence somewhere, as explained as some type of eternal waves of biophotons of energy. It often has different explanations. The question is, are we looking at individuals who are seeing a different world, or are they in fact seeing this world differently? And I always wondered about that. And that's what led me to studying sensory systems, the central nervous system, the brain, and doing research in that area. Now that I'm retired, I have some more flexibility. I'm at a point where I can now give more time, attention, and research towards areas that are highly fragmented, like consciousness and quantum physics, near-death and out-of-body experiences, effects of psychoactive drugs on individuals. These affect not only the brain in unique ways, but also the individual's psychosocial, spiritual perspectives, their philosophical and personal values, after having these types of experiences, are uniquely different, changed, generally in a positive direction. Always fascinated me. So now I wrote a book. I try to integrate these fragmented pieces of science, consciousness, what we may consider to be supernatural or paranormal, which are poor terms with poor interpretations. It has bad connotations, because what we're talking about is our inability or lack of understanding what truly is normal. That's what we now call the paranormal. Eventually, the paranormal, supernatural, all that woo-woo stuff will be normal. But we need to develop scientific principles and in the right way. And my book attempts to do that, combine the subjective and objective evidence.
Well, Bob, what is normal? Isn't normal just a construct of the system? They're telling us what is normal.
We are certainly influenced by culture, by our education, obviously. Memory is formed in that way. We're very sensitive, gullible individuals who can easily be persuaded in one direction or another. What psychologists, for instance, may be considered abnormal here, for instance, in the form of psychosis, as an example to your question. They say as long as the individual's hallucinations, visual, auditory, etc., are accepted by the culture, then it's okay. It's normal. But here, if the individual has the same symptoms, they're given thorazine, antipsychotic medications, etc., as well as counseling. So it's viewed differently. So my point is, what is psychology saying about the concept of psychosis? Are people seeing a different world or seeing this world differently? It's a matter of subjective opinion by psychologists, by the public at large. We don't know who or what to believe, but there are millions of individuals who truly are having types of hallucinations that psychologists question significantly. And they come in many different forms and manifestations, as we mentioned. The peak experience triggers, and they're mystical, spiritual, extraordinary experiences that everybody has in some way, and sometimes quite dramatic, in the form of near-death and out-of-body experiences I mentioned. Even interactions with unidentified aerial phenomena often presents a unique kind of, not surprising, extraordinary experience to the individual that is interpreted as spiritual and mystical because it has characteristics of it that are all similar among them, and they involve altered aspects of space and time, profound feelings of love, the telepathic communication with deceased relatives or the supreme beings, deities, or even non-human entities, which come in a variety of different shapes, sizes, and types. So we know about
we definitely want to get into that.
Rays, the reptile, we don't know 100% if that's true, but there are millions of individuals who contend that it is, and it is real to them. That the fact that they were abducted by aliens of different types and they were examined, or they had a near-death experience and they interacted with deceased relatives or supreme being after going through the tunnel and then able to come back, or out-of-body experiences. And the question is, are they experiencing a different reality as they firmly believe to be, with fierce determination? And who is it for you or me to say you're nuts? So we see the individual well balanced, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they truly are in need of psychiatric attention. Let's face it. But it's distinctly different when these kinds of hallucinations and so-called aberrations are associated with positive behavioral transformations. That's not psychosis. That outcome is not an individual who's severely depressed or anxious or adversely affecting the quality of lifestyle for that individual and the family at large. That's psychosis.
Yeah,
you don't see that after these kinds of peak experiences. So we have to take it seriously. And there are certainly psychotic disorders that are adverse. We're talking about a separate population here. And this is what the science needs to take much more seriously, as well as especially the psychiatric community, because the implications are profound. If they are actually experiencing this ultimate reality, as millions contend to do, throughout time, it says a great deal about who and what we are. What is reality? Are you the brain? Do we persist after death? The answers are probably more than significant to shock humanity at its core, if we truly knew what the answers were. And it may not even be a good idea to know it all. So I don't know if we can handle it. Flip a coin. That's an ultimate paradox.
Well, Bob, as we go, we will be taking questions, but they're sort of texted here, so they'll come to me and I'll read them. So during our chat, I will, and I can't tell you where the question is going to go. It may not be exactly what you're talking about, but let's get a couple real quick. We have two chats going on right now from our website chat. It looks like. Where did you get your PhD from?
The Ohio State University.
Okay, we'll just do a couple of these and we'll get back to our chat here. Doug White asks this question: how many people report seeing an angel of death or grim reaper? I guess not everybody has a really soft kind of glowing thing. Some people have some kind of very dark experience there.
Yeah, there are tendencies to see certain types of non-human entities. That one in particular, I'm not familiar with, but the incidence statistics are beyond me. I have no idea.
All right, one final question then from Azur. This is from YouTube. Are you a Christian? And if not, could you give your general view of universal creation?
Well, I'm a human being first, and creation. Well, I'm right in the middle. I respect both opinions. So we may have certainly evolved out of primordial soup, and come together in a random way, genetically speaking, to eventually create a human being with the type of consciousness that we have. The question is, why are we conscious? Did that evolve with us, or we were created somehow by a supreme being for whatever means? I don't discount that possibility. I do play the middle, and I apologize in some respect, but that's who and what I am. Please accept that. Like my book, I played the middle. I'm objective. I don't say that individuals are indeed having these kinds of experiences or not. That's for the reader to decide. No one has the answers. That's my point. Mm-hmm. And the people who do, who say with conviction that it's this way or that way, consciousness is definitely different in the brain, or consciousness in that it's part of the brain, hardwired that way. Their egoism, if I may say, is showing. We can have a strong opinion, but certainly don't debunk others that may have a different viewpoint. Mm-hmm. It is a highly contested issue, mm-hmm. but it is certainly quite stimulating to ponder.
Let me get a question that I have. I actually was mentioning this pre-show here as we open up the program. Do you think that people's personal experiences, we were talking about experiences, how another person really can't particularly judge them as far as whether they're valid or not, but do you think these experiences are somehow tailor-made for each individual?
It's a very good question. The issue is, what comes first, in a sense, the chicken or the egg, as the saying goes. The person may very well and more than likely create it on his or her own based on experience. So in a sense, it's created from within the brain, unless there is an external force, and you can't discount that is somehow influencing the individual, steering them in some direction to look at life, issues, reality, whatever it may be, in a certain way. People talk about this expanded consciousness as they experience through these various peak experiences, this unique awareness, this interrelatedness with nature, with the universe, the cosmos. And we certainly are connected with the cosmos. We are made of star stuff. We understand that concept. So we have to be connected, and maybe more than we really think, in terms of being affected by the moon.
Yeah,
the stars. There may even be something to that. But yeah, you may have another question.
Yeah, I do. If they are tailor-made, then does that take out our free will?
It might. These are very deep and profound questions, and I can't say I have an answer because I'm not a philosopher, and I think these kinds of questions are worthwhile discussing. I just don't have the background in philosophy where I think it more or less leads. But repeat that again for me, please, if you don't mind. It's late.
Well, that's all right. I was just saying that if perhaps our experiences are tailor-made, that we're going to go through something regardless, does that take us out of, say, a being that we believe that we are, who has free will? Wouldn't that mean that our free will is being
yes,
either violated or?
You can certainly look at it that way. And free will may very well be the essence of what we call consciousness. If you wanted to ascribe a meaning, a semantic definition to what's this enigmatic, paradoxical concept that we refer to as consciousness, sometimes is referred to as a soul, I. Being aware, the fact that I am aware of being aware, maybe subserves what symptomatically what consciousness really is, and that term, along with intuition, free will, and intuition are maybe the two highest unique qualities of a human being that should be cultivated much more so than it is. And individuals do claim to have unique powers using their intuition. This is what's important because it's relevant to extrasensory perception, clairvoyance, precognition, remote viewing. We know the government hasn't been involved with that, with many programs, Stargate, MK Ultra. We understand this with remote viewing, but I'm bringing this up only to emphasize the point that there is ample evidence that demonstrates that humans are indeed capable of interacting on invisible pathways and influencing physical systems. Not with 100% accuracy, but there are people that have been trained or have a unique inherent ability from birth to do so. Rare in occurrence, but we have a Beethoven, we have a unique scientist, we have unique physician, etc. We also have unique individuals who can also perform things we call paranormal, but it's real. Even autistic individuals. It suggests something quite profound, and it interrelates with the peak experience, ESP.
But if a person, say, is a Beethoven, were they predestined to be a Beethoven, or was it just random chance? That's that philosophical question there.
I hate to play defense. It's a good question, but I can only represent two sides. The brain has unique structural differences that yield a physiologic ability that incorporates memory, fine motor coordination, creativity, obvious music talent, in all its inherent beauty. To create that 1, 2, 3 individuals who everybody loves, like a Beethoven, a Babe Ruth, whatever star it is, Tiger Woods, etc. It could be a purely physiologic event, genetic event. I'm not going to play a linebacker for the New York Giants. Somebody else who's made a little physically different is. So there is a genetic influence, but there could be an aspect of consciousness who we really are, me. And that's what the debate is. That's the other camp. Is it my free will? Is it something beyond the body? Incorporated, symbiotically related to the brain and body, interdependent, but also persists after death. And that's what some people say. They take that perspective.
Was I predestined to be the cosmic cowboy? I mean, this is a question I must know. But let's give you an easy question now. What is consciousness?
Well, if I had the answer, I wouldn't be, down in Southwest Florida, about a mile away from, the Gulf or so. I'd be. I wish I had the answer. Endless stream of papers have been written about.
Do you think, Doctor?
Centuries, and yet, despite all the scholarly contributions to the concept of consciousness, the most important, I think, question that we could ask, at least certainly one of them.
Well, I was thinking. I was thinking about bugs the other day, and I was thinking. Now, bugs seem to react from a sort of a mechanical point of view. They must see danger and something mechanically moves, but an animal has a tendency to think or be aware more than an automatic response to a dangerous situation. For instance, the elephant has the march of sorrow when an elephant dies, and they cry. To me, that exudes consciousness more than just an animal trait or a biological entity. Something else is in there. Humans obviously have the same capabilities. There's something else that's not biological. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I agree completely. It's very insightful on your point, on your part. Where is love in the brain? Quantify it. Stimulate it with an electrode. Where is what you just described in the brain? Empathy. Creativity. We have a general sense, of this is the arm, the leg. This is where we have abstract thought. But yeah, you're right. We can't find those areas. Yeah. That could be an aspect of consciousness that's non-physical. That we're not able to right now because we live in a Newtonian world, right? We only ascribe to the physics of today that probably are lacking in your ability to measure what we're talking about here. Just that point. I agree.
All right.
I agree completely.
All right. One of our viewers says, Barbara Briggs says, Doctor, welcome to the Edge broadcast.
Thank you very much.
So now I'm a beekeeper. My wife and I keep bees. There is something that's euphemistically called the hive mind. And if there ever was a definition of it, seeing that, as a beekeeper, we see that. What one bee knows, they all know. To me, there's something to like maybe a quantum brain of some kind where every part of every bee has a specific part, and it comes to a piece. So they know. For instance, when a hive swarms, 50% of them leave, 50% stay. But who makes the decision who goes and who stays? There's 60,000 bees in there, Doctor. So to me, that tells me there is some universal acknowledgement. Now, I talked about insects a second ago, but I have to exclude bees because they're on a different plane all by themselves. In fact, some people claim they have facial recognition, man. So, there is this sort of hive mind that I see. Do you think humans also have this sort of linked consciousness?
Link consciousness. By the way, I thought these little bees, they flip a little tiny coin to figure out which ones leave and stay. They don't do that, huh?
I don't think so, no.
No? Okay. Well, here again, I think we could look at the collective unconsciousness, whereby just what you said, each one of us represents the whole. And we look at the brain that way too. It's like a mirror. You smash into 1,000 pieces, but each piece still represents the whole. The brain, may very well operate on that basis. Mm-hmm. And thus it allows for these quantum processes. You can look at it physiologically, and I don't want to go into great detail, but we have something called orchestrated reduction model that of quantum processes in the brain. Let me put it to you this way. A neuron in one brain, if you want to make an analogy to a computer, you'd need a computer the size of the United States to be capable of functioning. The biologic, neurologic, etc. Activity that one neuron in the brain does. So, we're talking about a system we don't even understand. But nevertheless, I think it's a very insightful question. Again.
Yeah, in our YouTube chat, Mr. Coffee says, I think we are all linked from what I have seen. And then Rupert Fellows says there is an individual and a hive mind. Now, that goes back to your sort of both ways type of mentality, that, you have your individual brain, but you're also sort of linked. I mean, certainly there is evidence, say, where a mother has an immediate alarm because her son in 2 states away just had an accident. How will she know that?
Yeah, no,
it's proven.
These are excellent questions. Thank you for asking it, because you have to look at life. These kinds of events, just as you're describing, to get an understanding of how ESP, this communication on visible pathways, operates. So we're talking about non-locality here. People do this. You're right. The mother does get that gut instinct, the feeling. The third, what is it, a sixth sense, whatever. That not always, but oftentimes is true. They get a sense the child's going to be injured, and they run and they, prevent the injury that was impending at that moment. People have that feeling when, not to board a plane when the plane crashes. It's manifested in all different ways. And we often overlook it, but you're right. What does that mean? And we see experimentally that people can influence one another in terms of their intention. That's another way of looking at it, non-locality. We have twins. We put them in one Faraday cage. The other one's in here. You ask one to focus you ask two to focus their intention on each other as if they're interrelated. We see that their brain activity synchronizes. Mm-hmm. And then we tell them to stop. It desynchronizes. It's time locked to the instructions of the interaction. That's significant. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. And they don't know. Verbally, they're not giving commands. You see? Mm-hmm. So we see it in many other ways and that we don't have time to address. But mm-hmm. But what is it? And that may be biophotons. That's another separate issue of quantum physics. Mm-hmm. That may be a part of consciousness. Okay? Mm-hmm. Biophotons. A way to actually quantify it if we do more research in the area.
Mm-hmm. From a biblical standpoint, I think there's at least one scripture that says something to the effect that he is before all things, and all things are held together by the power of his word. And another, I think there's others that say he is in all, within all, and is all. So there's almost, we talk about connectivity, that would show, or at least give us one possibility of a hive or a universal connectivity that appears to be out there. Dr.
And on that note, there are many psychologists, philosophers, well known, if I may, please, and please hold your thought, ascribe to just that, a semantic field, an information field. A colleague of mine, Rudy Shields, astrophysicist from Harvard University, he considers these black holes the neuron of God's brain. Okay, he's an astrophysicist from Harvard. I'm not going to argue with him. Doesn't mean he's right, but he's not the only one that makes these kinds of interpretations. Information is out there, past, present, future. I mean, it's weird. It's hard to imagine, but you have, mathematically derived, rationally obtained, doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Yeah.
But many ascribe to that today, at least. It may change certainly down the road. But
I always considered black hole a Democratic platform stance. Rupert Feller
I,
points out, says identical twins seem to have a psychic connection as well.
well, yes. People who generally, of course, lived with each other for a long time, obviously. But yeah, twins are unique. And when I was referring to that experiment just a second ago, where the hemispheres of the brain synchronize, it's done with twins. And we see this especially when there's a biologic connection just like that. Or people who are just emotionally close, especially, however, if twins are involved.
Uh, Doctor, what do you consider synchronicity?
No, Bob. Bob
Bob,
is fine.
but I just love saying doctor.
No, we're friends. This is informal. We're having fun, as I say.
All right.
Synchronicity. Wow. Carl Jung, the noted psychoanalyst, he came up with the term synchronicity. It's an interesting way how he came up with it. But there's that strong relationship between the timing of an event and the meaning of the event. It's like we all have them. Sometimes, however, it's not mere coincidence. It's more significant. It really rocks our world in a sense, knocks our socks off, as they say. One example that I read, Jared Diamond, I believe was his name. He wanted to, if I may, for a minute or two, he wanted to communicate with a professor. He was doing some research. Writing a book. He was dying to communicate with this one professor, I forget where, to the point where he was emotionally distraught over it. And he gave in, didn't do it, and regretted it. So eventually he went on a vacation sometime after, I forget how many months. He checks into his rustic, rural, out-of-the-world place in Indonesia somewhere. You can't even find it on the map the way he was describing it. He writes his name in the guest book as he checks in. Guess what? Of course, he sees the name of the professor right above his. Now he doesn't know that it is him, although comes walking down the stairs shortly afterwards. That's his story, and that might be an exaggeration or made up. I don't know, but you hear these kinds of things. Yeah. That is the best example of synchronicity: timing and meaning. Timing and meaning.
And for those watching the program with Bob Davis here, if you've had a synchronistic experience based on his description right there, just put a quick yes in both of either the chats that you're in or watching the program from. When we're talking about the consciousness, and I want to kind of move into dreams a little bit, because it seems that dreams and consciousness are kind of in the same category. We can't really quantify it, as you said. Where is love and where is the conscious? But I say, where are dreams?
Well, that also is a source of controversy, one that should be kicked around. And we have to look at, especially not only dreams, which oftentimes is just recent nonsense that's presented to us in a haphazard way that can be obviously incredibly wonderful or horrible, but nevertheless, lucid dreams. Those dreams, that are distinctly different, that feel realer than real, and we have them. And people report. Here again, their lucid dreams come into, they wake up and they're still dreaming and they're still experiencing or living the dream while awake, and they believe it to be real. And the question is it real or not? And here you have two sides of the camp. The dreams are potentially real in some cases. Some people say during a dream they sense the death of a near one, shared death experience, not as uncommon as you think. And guess what? At that exact time, the person died. People who have near-death experiences, they say they meet people who they didn't know had died. And they say, and then they're told once they're resuscitated and they're awake, they say, I met Joe on the other side with other deceased people, and they're told, Joe died 2 months ago. I didn't know, but they told these kinds of stories. It's kind of the essence of the semantic experience. What that person truly experienced in the NDE is very similar to that experience from psychoactive drugs like psilocybin, DMT, LSD, in many ways. And we see that even parallel with the UFO phenomena too, and near-death out-of-body, all of them. And that's, again, what is a source of controversy and interest by many worldwide.
Arkansas Bob has this question. It says, "Have you come across a peculiar time distortion among any of your research?"
Time distortion is an altered time and space of reality. The environment that the person is describing is not uncommon. People, again, having all of these peak experiences, say that. Now, if you ask someone who's into science in the brain, they'll say, well, you have a problem going on in this region of the brain, so a person can't differentiate between external and internal reality, what's going on outside and inside. So I lose orientation. And I have this unitive kind of experience. I don't know where I am. And people will say, I feel that then one with the universe or interconnected. The question is it a brain thing? Is it a result from approaching brain death, anoxia, when they're having a near-death experience, often occurring after a cardiac arrest? Or are they indeed experiencing something beyond? And what they experience, this subjective impression, suggests to many that they are indeed interacting with some alternative reality because of the unique features and characteristics of what they're experiencing, their interactions with individuals, people who are sensing when they are in the process of dying. Mm-hmm. People actually experience the actual experience itself. It's as if I'm having a near-death experience, but it's my wife having it. This is what people report. So that kind of shared that, the nuances here where it affects other people. Mm-hmm. And we see this too with ESP, of course, as we mentioned, in so many different ways, from the mother and the child in the playground to the laboratory. And it's integrated with science in terms of quantum mechanics. Not that quantum mechanics has all the answers, but it does. And we have to recognize classical quantum mechanics because they see parallels in the behavior of these subatomic particles. And you know that. Your audience knows that. The laws of entanglement, the observer effect with subatomic particles. Yeah, not all the members of your audience. I know you have a large audience for your popular show. And you do have, by the way, an excellent program. And I want to commend you on that. But nevertheless, we see a correspondence between the behavior of these particles and the descriptions of what people say when they say no, there's no time, no space, or the present is the same as the past and the future. These atoms, these photons, these neutrons, they behave that way in such enigmatic ways. We know that Einstein called a spooky action at a distance. He couldn't explain it. He only accepted it 2 years after he called the spooky action at a distance. He firmly believed it, but his math couldn't prove it. Now, but that says a lot. Mm-hmm. It says a lot because it gives us a window, possibly, to actually what people are saying is an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bob, in a very personal situation right now, I have my oldest brother is in hospice, and he's starting to fade. He's sort of in the between stage, and that's why I was particularly interested in having you on the program tonight. And you were mentioning, do people see things? He actually said that he saw in the room our brother Larry. Well, Larry passed on already, and Larry said, "We are waiting for you." But I've heard many people say that when you get that close, that loved ones appear, and should we deride that as a brain filling in the gap, sort of automatic defense against the unknown, or are they seeing relatives or close ones or others on the other side?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I'm very sorry for what you're going through and what your brother is experiencing. It's and we all approach it, of course, and we view life differently. It's rocking your world right now, your soul, and where in the brain is that what you're feeling right now? You can't find it, and it's that because it's hitting you. It's you that's affected. That's why the sense is so pronounced. You can't put it into words. It's ineffable, and we all go through it. In varying ways, and it can change us from that moment forward. But nevertheless, we're talking about cases which hospice workers, many physicians of the critically intensive care, I should say, individuals say it is much more common than not that individuals have these deathbed visions, as they're called, or lucid dreams. There are numerous cases of people in comas for months from massive strokes. Their brain is literally obliterated, but they're maintained. They're kept alive for a long time. They're in a coma. Guess what? They wake up. They talk about interacting with other beings. They're lucid, right? Terminal lucidity. This happens. Why are they conversing as if they just opened the door and came in from outside and said, take their coat up, said hello? But people say this, and then an hour or two later they drop dead, if I may say in a crude way.
Oh.
That's what really gets a lot of these doctors. How could a brain do that? How could a person do that? And it's unique. It's similar, but they also interact with, this is what you're saying, deceased individuals. Or again, individuals who they did not know who had died, but did die. But more than that, and they experience the other side in many ways. And that's what's intriguing. The brain should not be able to do that. But nevertheless, you have that explanation, the biophysical aspects of a dying brain, and you can't rule that out completely. But there are reasons to strongly suspect that might be possible. They're helped to cross the line. They're helped during their transition. Maybe it's a natural instinctive reaction by the body itself to get us through a period that we can only imagine is. Well,
I know, Doctor.
We can't imagine that the time that we are actually going to die. You can't. Language doesn't do it justice. Of course, everyone reacts to it personally different too. We all have a brain, right? But yet, everybody's perspective about an event, about death, varies considerably. Everybody can see. Yeah, I wrote that book too. I gotta get a life. I know, it's I don't know how my wife puts up with me, but she's the love of my life, and I love her to death. But nevertheless, but I may transgress. I forget what I was talking about.
Well, Bob, let me ask you. Let me get in here. Earlier, as in the opening discussion with you, you said you're kind of getting up there, and you're retired, and now you're sort of addressing, you want to address some of the larger questions of life, but seems like maybe some of the questions might be your own rather than giving information to others to try to help them understand the world and realities. What is reality? Are you in any way searching for answers as you get close to some state?
Well, of course, without question. And I like the question because we're all, in a sense, truth seekers. You have to be. Look who you communicate with. You have wonderful guests. They are on a quest in some way to discover something. Unique insight is presented, intelligent dialogue. It's wonderful. So the point is, we all have this innate ability to get these kind of answers to life. And we are a little bit more sensitive, yes, to some of the questions of life, obviously. And we don't want to suffer along the way. That's maybe the big picture. But the bigger overarching issue is, are we the brain? And that's essentially what we're talking about in many different ways. Are we the brain? And if not, what does it mean? What is the other side like? Are we getting a glimpse at the other side by people who have these kinds of experiences that they regard as real? And studies have shown that. They consider it more real than real. They can't be convinced otherwise. They're now atheists, for instance, who have had peak experiences along the lines we're talking about. About 2/3 of them in a recent study actually changed their beliefs. They now believe, as opposed to being atheists, after taking psilocybin or LSD or having near-death experience, they say they now believe in a supreme being. They now believe in a supreme being. I mean, for a change in a belief as pronounced as that for an individual, something significant must happen to that individual. I hate to say that, something rocked their world deeply. So they now believe in a supreme being because they interacted with one, or they had a strong sense, a knowingness. That's what they say. I'm not saying that's fact, but that's what millions say. And experimentally we see it, subjectively we see it. We see people on their deathbed see it, people have near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, in so many ways, in different ways. And the question is, can we integrate it again? Are there scientific principles out there that can help us make sense of this? Does religion do it? And religion does in some sense, because religion talks about this in a different, unique way that can't be disregarded in some aspects of it. They get at it. Science looks at it. Unfortunately, they don't enough, and they do so with a biased viewpoint. And they don't have the principles that can likely apply to proving the other side, the soul. Not yet, at least. Maybe at some point in time. Yeah, you're asking the right questions. I think we all are asking essentially the same kind of questions. We're on a quest for truth, regardless of where we are in life. Yeah, my mind is not cluttered so much with academia anymore or something else. Now I'm a little bit more free. Yeah, I do look at that thing subjectively. Yeah, man. And it's cool. I like life a lot more now because I have that flexibility. And my mind wanders. It's still in research. It's kind of trained that way. That's why I wrote these books. This one here. So that's my thing. Everybody has their thing. You have a wonderful thing. I like to think mine is pretty good. At times you question it. At times you get bored. At times you're stimulated. At times it's great. Look at what it led to. Sharing my thoughts and ideas with you and your audience. And I thank you very much for that opportunity. And thank your audience for tolerating some of my, if I may say, bullshit baffling brains. Huh? Now, can we put it that way? No, I'm only kidding. Only kidding.
What is is intellect a part of spirituality?
It has to be. I think it has to be. Intellectual ability is based on brain function, but intellectual ability is also emotional, how we react to life events. That emotional and analytic kind of intellect. Intellect itself is kind of used in jargon that we don't really know what it means specifically. But some people react differently. How do we measure intelligence? Another issue at hand. So yeah, but it is tied to spirituality because I take it back. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a profound question. It's an excellent question. There has to be some integration. I'm sorry, but I can't really answer that well.
Okay, we have a question coming from Georgia. It says, and in your book, you talk about the quantum brain, and I certainly really like talking about quantum physics. So when it comes to the quantum and brain in the same sentence, I'm all for it. The question is, can phosphorus atoms make the brain function like a quantum computer?
Not that I'm aware of. We know that specific type of ion, electrically charged particle, certainly it's positive in nature, is critical, certainly for neural functioning, electrical conduction along a nerve, obviously. So I don't know of any research that proves that cause and effect.
Well, how would you describe the brain as a quantum brain to begin with?
It's something that researchers have noticed in the microtubules or the cytoskeleton of the outer layer of neurons in the brain. They find that there is communication between adjacent microtubules on the same nerve in such a way that only suggests that it can occur using these kinds of processes that allow for such fast, rapid, instantaneous transmission. And they find that the only way, again, that you can say or quantify the activity of one neuron is that of I hate to say it again, the size of a computer, the size of the United States. The point is, the only way it can function the way it does is instantaneously because of its complexity. We're talking about 100 billion neurons, and there's 100 million synapses with each individual neuron. And you're not even talking about the trillions of proteins that are involved with each neuronal impulse. The complexity of what we're describing is incredible, and we don't understand it very well. And that's part of it. How are we going to understand consciousness when we don't even understand brain function? And yet, people who have, obviously, an aspect of consciousness is trying to describe consciousness. That's the ultimate paradox. How are we truly going to get a clear definition, understanding of this nebulous term when we ourselves are just that?
Do you think artificial intelligence will ever get up to the level of brain operation?
No. No way. No way, Jose, if I may say. No, because we'll never know. Maybe never know. I shouldn't put it that way. How consciousness works, where it is in the brain. How can you upload consciousness into a computer? How can you program something when you don't understand something? We don't understand. 95% of the brain. We understand a lot. Don't mistake me, but the big picture we don't understand. And along the lines we're talking about, the big overarching issue. How are you going to upload that into a computer when we don't even have answers for that? You may get aspects of memory into a computer. You'll get amazingly fast computation. Yeah. But to a computer, you're just talking about zeros and ones, of your relatives on the screen. What you're feeling is subjective emotion, pronounced in nature. It's quite different between artificial and real, and your soul.
Because Google claims they'll be able to upload our, I don't know what, maybe, as you said, maybe they can grab the pictures or a memory on the brain. I know they say they have technology that will, that you can steer a plane with a brain, or they can project thoughts into your head. But it does seem like there seems to be a wall there, like you said, like the actual consciousness, those are just taking something that already exists. But the consciousness part, the brain, the soul, the spirit, that seems to be like off limits. There's no way that they'll be able to get to that part. So what would you have if you just had the memories? You would have some sort of robotic entity with a digital brain.
Good point. You don't know. You'd have maybe a stimulus effect. You'd have reflexive reactions.
You'd be like a bug, like we were talking in the first hour. You'd be like the bug.
There's no way to put algorithms. There's no way to put computations that are required for coding in the way that they do, and I certainly don't understand it. Well, we don't understand how it exists in the real world. You can't make the transition from something we don't know to programming it in a computer for artificial intelligence to try to create something that's human nature. What you can do is create a holographic image of a human being. I'll tell you, it's not too long down the road when holographic images of people are going to appear on the street, and you think that's a real person, and they're not. They're a holographic image. That's how close we're getting to kind of artificial intelligence, but just in terms of obviously appearance. Far from behaving, of course, like a human, but remarkable technology in a sense. And also, what you just mentioned, can our thoughts be influenced externally? Can hallucinations be created? There is conjecture. I don't have actual answer to that. I know, of course, microwave energy can interfere with the body in many different ways. And I think you may have addressed it on one of your shows. And we're seeing this, unfortunately, with long-term studies. This low-frequency energy, microwave energy, especially if you're close to the source, of course, you get a larger dose, has adverse effects in many ways. But nevertheless, you wonder what these specialized access programs that probably exist that high-level government officials may or may not be aware of, and you never know what is going on in some deep projects. I don't discount any possibilities. And a lot of the things we see in the sky are homegrown, that defy logical explanation. But, a lot of that I think is real. A lot of it is real.
In fact, we have this question from one of our previous guests watching the show. Paul says, do you think the information from our subconscious is dreaming coming from previous lives?
Conjecture. Ian Stevenson, noted researcher in reincarnation, did a lot of studies in that area. And something that's actually going on now in the University of Virginia, I can't recall the individual's name, but nevertheless, the ability of individuals, especially less than 5 years of age, to recount accurate details of prior lives in the 1700s, 1600s, only for it to be found to be, again, highly accurate, about the physical appearance of the town as it existed then, about the names of the people, the places, etc. If we go to this house over here, we're going to meet X, Y, Z, all of that, the historic nature of it when the child is 4, 5, 6, and never been informed about that place. It happens, according to Ian Stevenson. He's noted, hundreds, not thousands, hundreds of these reports. I was killed with a sword right here, and they find that to be the case, and that's why the individual has a birthmark in that place. He found that association between birthmarks, birth defects, and prior means of death. A unique correspondence. Does that prove that there is life after death and we reincarnate? No, it doesn't prove it. And he said it only suggests a possibility of, but you can't discount it. You really can't. It's interesting. Child may have been maybe tapping some kind of an information field that, again, people regard exists outside the being, and that contains that information of the past. And many physicists say that the past, the present, the future, all that information is in the semantic field. And semantic field theory, it goes by many different names. Akashic records. Astrophysics, again, it's in the black holes where information exists. Interesting.
Bob, there's a highly discussed topic out there on the internet called the Mandela effect. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it appears to be that things are distorted, or as people recall things, they seem to be changed. Some people have explained it as that the Earth or a reality that we have has a finite amount of information in it through all the eons of time. And then that some force, and I noticed the title of your book, Unseen Forces, puts something in to this realm or this reality, causes a time-space distortion, and it could appear anywhere. For instance, some claim that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood used to say, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Now, if you listen to it, it says, it's a wonderful day in this neighborhood. Now, I certainly don't recall that, and I'm not making a case for Mandela, but they say that there's this distortion. Something from outside is dropping information in this reality, and it's moving something or changing something because now we've added to the finite amount of information. What do you think about that phenomenon? Have you heard of it?
Yeah. There are books on that concept called time slips. People actually report experiencing that, where they're maybe walking somewhere and they say, something, I don't know where did the last 2 hours go? It was Wednesday. How could it be Thursday? Are they making their own judgment? Memory problem? Yeah, maybe in some cases, yeah. But these kinds of alterations in time and space do occur. Here again, the question is, are they experiencing a different world or seeing a different world, or are they seeing this world differently? What does it mean if it's true? And you have these remarkable kinds of events. Yeah, and that raises the possibility of alternate realities. That, you could look at our reality on an XY axis, and it's kind of like a linear line and on a time-space continuum, but it could theoretically, highly complex, and I don't fully understand it, but it can exist at a slightly different phase than ours, and it's mathematically possible. Quantum physics suggests it's possible, multiverse theory, and you could have these branches on a tree. We can have many branches on this tree, and every possibility that could occur to every event actually exists. Okay, and that's it's scientifically derived, and it's also philosophically accepted, and we see it subjectively when people report alterations of time and space, or the past, present, and future exist simultaneously when they have these peak experiences. I can move about with my will. I'm not my body anymore. I come to the realization I'm not my body. They all say this, and that's why they don't fear death. That's a common outcome. As well as becoming more humane from these experiences.
Bob Davis, when we wake up, how do we know that we're in the same reality that we left the previous day?
Well, it depends who's sleeping next to us.
Well, in the new reality, that would be your reality. How would you know? It would seem perfectly normal to you.
Yeah, you're entertaining me more than I may or may not be entertaining your audience. I'll tell you,
that's what I
these
do.
Questions, they really come out of left field. They make me think like like I never have before on other shows. I'll be very honest with you, and I commend you seriously. I don't mean to score points, but these
Sure.
questions are quite profound, very insightful. I can tell they were given great thought, because I don't have, and I'll be very honest, I don't have the firm, conclusive answers to them, but they're critical enough to consider. And just that. And unfortunately, I wish I had the insight to give you a reasonable answer, and I come up blank.
Okay. Christopher out of the YouTube chat asked this question. Says, Bob, have you had multiple spiritual events in your life? Have you had spiritual events that you would definitely quantify it even, as a spiritual event?
Yeah, and that's another great question. I asked one question in return. What do you mean by a spiritual event? That too has numerous kinds of connotations. Are we talking about a mystical, extraordinary event, like seeing a flying saucer interacting with a non-human entity, a gray, a dwarf, a Sasquatch, or having a near-death experience? Or I saw two orange orbs in the night sky in Sedona, Arizona. They initially appeared vivid. One of them emerged from behind or came from within it. They both remained stationary for 5 minutes or so, and then both blinked out. Is that another non-human intelligence? I don't know. That motivated me to write that book, The UFO Phenomenon. Always very interested in that phenomenon. So I wrote it. That did it. But the question is, I forget your question again, though.
Well, no, it was whether or not you had spiritual events.
Yeah, I saw the UFOs. I once had a shared-death experience. I knew through a lucid dream, I knew that my friend was suffocating. I sensed an inability to breathe. The horror, it's remarkably terrible. Again, language doesn't do it justice, but I felt it. Woke me up, not surprisingly. My friend had died at that moment, and I knew she had died. That's called a shared dream. That moved me. That makes, when you asked that good question earlier about, I'm talking about myself in some ways. Indeed I am. Indeed I am. Everybody, more or less, in some way has a pronounced effect, experience in their life that they can't explain, and often denounce, ignore, but I can't. That meant something. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a certain amount of, you're demonstrating some excellent humility there, but the fact that you recognize it probably has a meaning, and that's one of the things we're all searching for. Can we ever know that meaning? Do we have to go to the other side to find that meaning? Is there a way to get just a little closer to the meaning now? And if we don't understand the meaning, well, we have to go through it again to get the meaning, because we're so the culture is so permeated in our being that it's noise, and you got to get the noise out of the way so you can understand the message that you're supposedly trying to receive.
Beautifully said. And I think we have this innate quality to ask those kinds of questions, and I think our ancestors asked the same questions, and we look like them, and we also think like them, in the sense that we are, in a sense, spiritual. But what do we mean by spiritual? We mean we're truth seekers, and we all seek it in different ways. We ask these kinds of questions. Commendable. I think we have to ask it. And when we have these extraordinary events that we can't explain, and science can't explain it, and it has such pronounced meaning to me, presented to me in such a unique way as a shared death experience. And guess what? 200,000 people each year in the United States alone have these kinds of experiences in varying ways, let alone globally, and let alone over 10, 20 years, like I said, for years. And probably throughout time. It's been shown in folklore, in the Bible, in varying ways, at the time appropriately expressed, that these experiences have been going on forever. That may have been involved in spiritual evolution, maybe, as if somebody's guiding us. I can't discount that possibility, showing us different things in different ways that are culturally appropriate for the times, and we derive benefit from it. And some access that information and experience it better than others, and learn from it possibly, and ask questions that are appropriate. And that's the way to get answers. You have to ask the questions first, obviously.
As a neuroscientist yourself, I like many people probably watching the show, love science, love science fiction. I love chemicals and theses on the universe and various things like that. But when it comes to something larger, something that my being wants. Science can't give it to me. They give me facts, and they're dry and they're facts, but there's something that they can't give me, and that's perhaps why you wrote this book, because you've experienced that too. That an amalgamation of facts doesn't fill a hole in that some part of us that wants to know the meaning of life. That's
And
not
Dan,
scientific.
you're exactly right. Your listener's question is right. It's spot on. It's spot on. I'm trying to put the bridge between science and reality, human experience, the soul, incorporating aspects of brain function, indeed. But how do we best integrate all of this information that's highly fragmented? Um, and we first have to ask the right questions. But yes, it was derived in part by subjective experiences, but we are dictated by Newtonian physics. Ever since that apple fell on Newton's head, we live in E=mc² land, and it's limited. It's served us well. It has, but we're evolving, and science has to evolve with the subjective experience and look at this in different ways in order to gain possibly principles that can be applied to figure out what consciousness is. Intention may be biophotons that radiate electromagnetically from the brain, and this is an important point. I know we're getting close to the end of the program, and let me emphasize this point. Biophoton, I address this in my book too. Intention varies, and thus biophotons, these ultra-weak magnetic emissions from the brain, they have been detected. Inappropriate, or I should say inadequate research to date on this. But this might be the invisible means of communicating with others, and this may have pronounced implications for energy healing and other positive applications for the human condition. And we may be able to detect it using let's call it a consciousness meter. We may be able to have an objective measure of consciousness one day, and it might be biophotons. That may be part of what's involved with ESP, reading of minds, the thing you were talking about earlier, to telesmatic effects between twins in different cages, in different rooms. And underlies all of these experiences, because when people have peak experiences, they say they interact using telepathy with the deceased being or deceased relatives. Why? And that's a question too. Why deceased relatives or people they know? Why not the neighbor next door who they know? It's right. The nuance to the experience has to be examined more closely, and that says a lot. We
have this question here. It says, "Do you know anything about the?" Now I'm going to probably mispronounce this. Fibonacci numbers in relation to with the golden ratio, which is the given of the frequency of semantics of form given by the designer or creator. I think there is something out there called the golden ratio. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay. I think some builders use this ratio.
Yeah, it's used mathematically, and I know the Fibonacci numbers are used as a statistical predictor of future events, given information or metrics of what we're trying to evaluate. So people apply Fibonacci numbers, for instance, to predict the market direction, but it can be applied in different ways too.
Seemed like it'd be better to use a sort of a spiritual connection rather than a mathematical equation to get where you want to get to. You talk about something in your book called the illusion of time. Is it just an illusion?
Well, we're taught it's linear. We look at our wrist, we're reinforced with that notion. It's linear. It governs our lives, and there is an aspect of time that you have to incorporate in mathematical formulas. It is a critical invariable in our 3D world. Physical bodies behave in a timed way. My heart beats in a timed fashion. It's connected to lifetime. Time's important, but there are aspects of time that are an illusion. Like times when we have synchronicity, times when we have these kinds of slipping moments, times when we experience alterations of time, and this is what people say, more so that either time sped up or there was no time at all. And here again, you can't understand it, of course, unless you have that kind of experience. And it could be that unitive experience that results in ego dissolution that seems to transform people because it is such a significant experience. Maybe it's, I don't know. Like it's like thinking of the poor souls who had to decide whether or not to jump from the 100th floor of the World Trade Center or burn. It's visceral. It's visceral. The feeling you can't imagine, but it's like that, so pronounced you can't put it into words what these individuals are truly experiencing.
Well, let's just give you another easy question. What is truth?
Truth?
I figured I'd just throw an easy one out for you. And the reason, let me go a little further then. I think part of this is that we're seeking truth. When we talk about the meaning of life, whether there's entities on the other side, whether these are they true? So therefore we are seeking truths. That being said, truth by nature means it's all encompassing, but does each person have their own truth? But doesn't the meaning of truth mean that they can't have their own meaning because there's only one truth to be truth? How about that?
How about this? I've been up since about 4 o'clock this morning and answering a good, qualitative, deep, existential question is that at 9:30, at night with a shoulder pain. I had a shoulder replacement not that long ago.
And the truth is, you got a shoulder pain, right?
And you're asking the impossible, but I love it. I love it in some way, and I wish. What is truth? Yeah, obviously subjective. Obviously, it applies to validity, truth.
Well, I posit that it can't be subjective. That's mine on my
truth?
take on.
Well, and you may be right. I just I don't have a.
Hey, no, I'll tell you what, man. Now a little funner question here. In your book, you talk about the trickster archetype. Now, my wife and I love to watch a show called Supernatural, and in this show, there's a trickster in there, and this guy seems to have more power than the great Satan himself, man. I mean, this guy is powerful. He's always pulling tricks on people in one way or another. What is your definition? Why do you have a trickster archetype in your book?
Only because it plays a large role in the kinds of experience that people report throughout time. It's depicted in folklore. It's depicted in the Bible. In various ways, people are claiming that they have interacted with so-called tricksters, little beings, entities that are both good and bad, that deceive people. Again, we're talking about what people report. And the point is, do we give it credence? And Rosemary Ellen Guiley, a dear friend of mine, who wrote several books on
we had her on the show.
Visionary Living Publishing, if I may say, many books on the study of paranormal. She is the source, the expert researcher in this area, and books should be evaluated with great respect and quality from her and co-authors. The point is this: are there beings interacting with us, helping us evolve spiritually, or deceiving us, playing games with us, possessing us, as people claim? And here again, when people are reporting these kinds of experiences, you can't entirely ignore them. So the jinn represents one type of non-human entity that's commonly depicted in folklore.
So have you ever experienced the effects of a trickster?
Not that I'm consciously aware of, but it's quite possible that we're all unconsciously aware of it, and that's what governs our world. Our past memories, reactions to events. Oftentimes, we do things without thinking.
Yeah. Well, I would put our politicians in the trickster category. So, all right. So, you kind of include in your book unidentified aerial phenomena, which is interesting. Now, because of the title of your book, Unseen Forces, the Interaction of Science, Reality, and You, are you suggesting that UFOs in some way are part of the unseen forces affecting us?
My body, mind, and soul needed that. Unidentified aerial phenomena is a unique aspect of what we're talking about here. Millions of people are interacting with this aerial phenomena that comes in many different shapes and sizes, again, depicted throughout time. More importantly, people are interacting with non-human entities associated with this phenomenon. I was involved in a study that was published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, a highly respected journal that is refereed last summer with Ray Hernandez, Russ Galpone, and Rudy Shield. It was based on over 3,000 individuals who say they interacted with this phenomena. 80% did not want their interactions with the phenomena to end. They would change in positive psychosocial ways, at least 75% of them. They say things like their consciousness was removed from their body. It had expanded consciousness. They interacted with other beings. They experienced a matrix reality. Again, all the time, space. They felt extraordinary love. Love is the answer. Unconditional love, a common theme throughout all of these peak experiences. Maybe it should be emphasized more so, and maybe that's truth. Yeah, and certainly part of it. What is life all about? Maybe that represents truth. And maybe it is what John Lennon said, love, that kind of thing. You can make a case for that. I forgot where I was going.
That's okay, because we're going to lead right into this question here. Can we truly have mind over matter with the quantum mind? That is, say, even walk through walls or walk on water?
Well, there are physical laws to our universe and the 3D world, so that we can't defy. We can't defy inertia and gravity. But maybe, however, we'll have a technology that will. We see these aerial phenomena that appear to do just that. And I don't think we have that capability.
But didn't quantum physics, though, say that if you rearrange the protons in a certain way, that the protons would say go through a wall, which appears to be solid, but they're not. And if they go a certain way, go through and then rematerialize in the way they were on the other side of the wall.
Well, and people report doing just that when they interact with non-human entities associated with this unidentified area phenomena. They say they're in the room 1 minute or 1 second, and they're on board the ship or outside their home, another, with no recollection of how they got there. The missing time component, or they say they actually go through a solid object. Here again, when you're looking at subjective experiences, but why the commonality of these experiences in so many? I'm not saying that is truth. It may very well be. It's real to them, and maybe that's what truth is all about. That's we have to respond to that and deal with it. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we'll be capable of doing that, but yeah, rearranging subatomic particles is obviously required. A beam me up Scotty. Eventually, someday we'll get there. More likely sooner than later. Yeah.
Well, some have claimed that the D-wave quantum computer may be even getting close to that. I think there's you mentioned the Bible. I think there's a story where Jesus actually walked through a wall to see the disciples, and it seems to me that quantum physics, that God works in the realm of quantum, so that's why it was intriguing to see that you mentioned the quantum brain in your book. Here's a kind of a good question for you. This is going to go way off to the right. We were talking about UFO phenomena, entities from them. Have you ever met somebody who said they've seen reptoids or reptilians of any kind? Obviously, some people say there's many species, greys, insectoids, my favorite.
Yeah, I've met people at conferences where I gave talks. Some associates who indeed say just that. They met more often than not the human-looking and greys, and that's what the study in the scientific journal said, that we performed on over 3,000 individuals. More so human-looking greys, and less so, but yeah, people do say they interact with insectoids, reptilians, etc., among many other kinds of beings of varying emotions and intelligence and roles that they claim to have when they do interact with them in a different environment, usually on their ship, a seamless ship. But But trying to make sense of the subjective experience is something that is more than challenging. And I try as best as possible to integrate this information in the book. Reviews have been beautifully positive, and I feel good about that. But I encourage people to review it. I make 5 cents on the dollar. I'm not trying to advocate it for that reason alone. I'm here to just express my viewpoints, make people think, and yes, try to stimulate thought about many questions that we're obviously addressing. I'm not saying I have all the answers at all. Please, you know as much as I do about this. I may look at it a little differently, emphasize some areas a little more, and I commend you for what you do to talk about topics and areas of conversation that you have with outstanding guests that address many of these and other kinds of issues that get at the truth, attempt to get at the truth, assess reality. Is there more to life than just this? Why am I alive? Why am I conscious? All of those kinds of questions, I don't think we should take for granted. And I think there is certainly something much more profound that exists in our world today that we can't even comprehend, let alone prove, test. But our
Bob,
future generations will realize it, not us, I don't think.
In writing this book, and obviously well researched, and so many great topics in there, do you at this point feel like now that you've sort of put it into a book, a tangible item where now you can reference back to it, do you feel in any way that you are more spiritual? However you define that, I guess.
I like to think so, and I think you and your guests certainly are, and are, I think, becoming more spiritual. You can't turn off that interest in looking at these kinds of topics. Once you're hooked, once you look at them, find interest in it, go to shows like your excellent one to listen to your discussion with individuals about it. Once you take the bait, you seem to pursue that. You read on the web, you read books in the area, try to get more knowledge, try to seek the truth. And that's what spirituality truly is, I think. Just truth seekers. Whatever that may be, along the lines we're talking about, but trying to solve the enigmas, the paradoxes of today, trying to make sense of the experiences people are having. What is a near-death out-of-body experience? Interaction with, is it other entities coming here to Earth from another planet, another dimension? Do they coexist with us? Have they always been here? Is this the angels, the fairies of yesteryear, or are we conjuring it up? What is going on here? Why are so many people reporting these kinds of experiences and impacting their lives in such unique ways? And we need to give more attention to that.
Bob, let me ask you, have at any time in your life, were you at a place where you emphatically did not believe there's anything more than the realm, the reality that you're in? There's nothing on the other side. Some people say you just disappear, on the other side. Did you ever have that sort of point of view? And if you did, has it changed now to believe that there is something beyond death?
Not entirely, not directly. I sometimes wish I did. However, I've talked to so many people who say that they did, and it has such an impact on their lives that you can't help ignore it and realize that there is something profound occurring, especially kinds of experience that people are explaining from lucid, well-balanced individuals. At least they behave that way. They communicate that way. I had the shared death experience. I had so those unidentified aerial phenomena. I've had incredible synchronicities that increase with frequency over time. And if you become aware of it, and that's the first step. Everybody read a little bit about it. Become aware of the fact that some of the coincidences you write off, there's meaning attached to it. Don't you see? The things we say, oh, that's a coincidence. Well, okay, don't stop there. Keep going.
Exactly.
And just look to see if there's something else attached to that meaning in your life in some way. You'd be surprised. Being aware of it is the first step to realizing that synchronicities exist. That represents an illusion of time. Getting back to the question you asked earlier, because we're looking, in a sense, what? We're looking at what? A future event. If there's meaning that relates to the future, and there often is, The future exists at the present, don't you see? So a lot of people look at synchronicity as just an example of how the future can exist now, because you see people deriving information from future experiences, and they find it to be real, accurate.
And in the human experience of observation, if one looks for pennies, intent, and you're looking down for pennies, you start finding them. They're everywhere. But they were always there. You just weren't looking. Is it the same? Can we apply the same thing to synchronicities? If you know that they exist, that you will see more?
Exactly. Look at it this way. You just buy a certain kind of car, Acura, green. What do you see on the road?
Green Acura.
Yeah, you start noticing, there's a green, there's a green. So it's a synchronicity in the sense that, you become more aware of it. It's more meaningful to you. You own it. You like it. You spent, $20,000 on it. You're gonna start noticing it now. When before it was just another car. Yeah. So that analogy is, if you start looking at events in life, in a playful kind of way, looking at for these little subtle ways of communication, and I see this in myself. Yeah, I do. I really do. If you say that there's something a little bit more meaningful that's being presented to me, that appears as a coincidence, look at it deeper. And I've been doing that. And hey, if I'm making it up and putting my wishful thinking into it. Okay, let me. As long as it's having a positive effect on me, fine. That's the way to play it. As long as you're deriving benefit in some way from it, and you can. That's what's interesting. You can.
Yeah. Now, sure. Of course, that has to be different than the sort of the organic visualization of the Acura or the penny. Those are tangible items. But we're talking about supernatural events. So those can't really be manufactured, say, versus observing. So, but if they are happening, I certainly want to know about it. And I do feel like you can, I don't want to say train, maybe you can use the word train yourself to look for them, but do you think everybody has either supernatural events happening to them, which they don't recognize as supernatural events, or synchronicities that are happening to them that they don't recognize as synchronicities?
More than likely, yes. Not being fully aware. People who claim to become more fully aware after they have these kinds of experiences, or meditate for long periods of time, claim to become more aware, whatever that means. However, they come to a realization that there's more to life. It's more psychic, it's more ESP, there's more synchronicities, it's more extraordinary events. They feel that they can heal people through intention alone. They can sense karma better from others, or give karma to others in a positive way. They feel there's more to life. They experience life a little differently, and they benefit from it. So they say. Keep asking questions along those lines.
I was just thinking there is I think a biblical scripture out there scripture that says that spiritual things, you can gain spirituality by the exercise of its use. So there must be something that we can do to perhaps increase our recognizing that things are happening way bigger than what we think. That aren't random events in our lives.
One way to do it. There are other ways. Yoga, other types of Tai Chi, different kinds of practices that are maybe ancient in nature, that seem to connect the mind with the body in a harmonious way, or even separate the mind or inhibit its limiting influence. If you can quiet the brain, you find that many people say they become more psychic. They have more intuition, more awareness, quieting the brain. And that's what's happening in these kinds of peak experiences. With some aspects, the brain function is being quieted, inhibited. The noise is being reduced. you can't think straight, obviously, when you're walking down Midtown Manhattan versus when you're on top of a mountain with your legs crossed, 3,000 feet in the air and no one's around you. The world around you is going to have an influence on your perceptions, how you feel, and you can feel at one with the environment under certain circumstances, and that's the natural way to be. Some people are born to be a Beethoven. We all have an ability to play, but some do it better than others. Same thing with psychic ability. We all, I think, have the ability of being aware of certain psychic events like synchronicity and other things, but also having ESP, influencing others using intuition. And we see that being done experimentally. And we probably do it on a day-to-day basis, but we're not aware that we do it. We make the person say this. We make the person react in that manner using intention alone. And who knows? Maybe that can be cultivated from an early period in life to again, for the benefit of humankind. Maybe it's better to teach these kinds of potentialities, human potential, making the most of human possible capabilities by decluttering the mind. Helping the person to become more spiritual, more aware from early on in life, instead of pushing birthdays to remember for a test of various presidents throughout time. If you know what I mean.
It seems to me, though, the more a person becomes spiritual or aware of spirituality or aware of future life after death, that they become more compassionate to their surroundings now. But because science doesn't teach that, and certainly educational facilities don't teach that, they're just like you just said, facts and figures, then there's a whole part of the human experience that is pushed aside, and then we have all this crap that's running through the world now. I think it would be better if they would apply just a little bit of these principles of awareness, that there's a connectivity to all of us, without getting into positive and negative energies, which would scare some people, but the spiritual component is typically left out. And I noticed that one of the chapters in your book is neuroscience and spirituality. I do like the way you approach it from both sides. I think they can both exist peacefully together.
With that question, and neuroscience tries to explain spirituality on a biological level. You remove a tumor, the person becomes more spiritual. You say the word God on a person's ear, this particular part of the brain lights up. The inferior parietal lobe, big deal. But the point is, there is a piece of tissue here that seems to be more responsive to incoming information about religion, about God. And many neuroscientists are trying to find just that, the God spot. Where in the brain is God represented? If it is, where is spirituality represented? And they don't have a clear answer, but they're looking at it. The fact that they're looking at it, many physicians, neuroscientists, etc., are doing so. Even young children, 5 years of age, they seem to be programmed to believe in a higher power. Again, difficult to control these kind of studies, but this is what they say. Without influence from parents, they show a natural tendency to believe in something. And think about these little kids. Hey, my beautiful son Jack. Hello, Jack. Hello, Jack. He's playing with these. I think they're popular for these little kids. These playthings that have special powers. Right? They exist throughout time.
Right.
Creatures that we play with have special powers. Special power. Why is that a thing? But the thing is, it may evolve into belief in spirituality and religion, like an invisible force of some type, something beyond normal. And we look at it like supernormal now, supernatural. We see evidence of like innateness of this cultivated in an early age. It exhibited in an early age, but yeah, it's not reinforced. And maybe it should be, or modified in some way, addressed, and it may go dormant when it shouldn't. And I think maybe many of our ancestors were highly spiritual. Now, maybe they had many answers that we don't. We get too materialistic, obviously. We equate happiness with cars, with bank accounts, etc., etc. And our brain is constructed to derive happiness. We have that intense urge in many different ways, and it's logical and illogical, and we suffer consequences as a result of that concept of happiness. And how do you impede it when you should, and et cetera, et cetera. It gets a lot of people in a hell of a lot of trouble for a hell of a long time, man. It really does. And we're slaves of the brain. And we have to inhibit it in many ways. And unfortunately, it's a remarkable instrument, but it can be an instrument of insanity and ruin lives.
Well, I wonder,
how do you control the impeding factors of the brain? It's highly imperfect, marvelous at some level, and disastrous at others. The past influences the present. You talk about time slips. The fact that I was robbed when I was 10 years old at gunpoint. Well, I'm scared of that person now. I'm scared of guns now. I'm scared of heights now. I'm scared of snakes now. The past. That we have these innate fears. We all have them. Snakes, spider, whatever they may be, in varying ways. Why? Oh, survival. We can go back in time. Transgenetic, epigenetic, transgenerational inheritance. Right, a long word that says we not only get the physical features of our ancestors, 250 and 6'5" that I am, right? But we also get the fears. We also get that sense of spirituality. We also get the emotional abuse they sustained. There's actually studies done with ancestors offspring of people who survived the Holocaust, people who underwent enormous stress in different cultures, in different ways. And the kids show evidence of higher degrees of like cortisol, a stress hormone in the body. They show unique changes in their psychospiritual behaviors that seem to be programmed by the experience of their ancestors. So in a sense, which is interesting, and we see evidences of this, manipulating this in mice. We can teach them to be afraid or have an aversion to a learned smell. Well, complicated, yeah, but the experiments are pronounced, because if it's true, and it seems to be, then what they underwent subjectively, experientially, the fears, the hate, I want to kill, I want to do. We inherit that in different ways. Are we born clean slate? I'm nothing, and all incoming events, stimuli is going to shape and form me for the rest of my life, or do we come into this life with some patterns of inheritance that have a direct influence on our emotions, behavior, reactions to events? This kid's born a monster. No good from birth. That kind of. It's truth to it. I don't know, but I've seen it.
Our moderator just pointed out, said that it seems that everyone on the planet is predisposed to have a belief in something spiritual, but it sounds like what we're talking about is that both worlds exist: the brain, the organic part, the thoughts and experiences. But there's also seems to be another part. I guess we can just use the word spiritual, and I think, well, they're not mutually exclusive. I think that maybe if we start moving from the brain to the more spiritual, we'll find more fulfilled life, because I think we don't have a fulfilled life in the brain section, because that's where they say you got to buy a car, you got to have a house, you got to have this, you got to have that. Those never fill the basic needs that's somewhere deep inside of us. So but the forces capitalize on that. Say, well, you need the newest thing, you need another thing, and so, oh, well, that's what it is. That's why I'm unfulfilled. That's why I'm not getting anywhere. That's what my problem is. I need this and that, but yet they're being lied to. I think the real fulfillment is an intangible. It's not an object of possession. It's over here in the spiritual. And I think it really scares them, those that are running that system, to keep us in this sort of prison, to think that we need things in our lives, because the real life and the universal and eternal life is where our satisfaction comes, our fulfillment comes from. And I think, Bob, if from this message, I think that we're saying that both worlds exist, but let's start moving toward the other and find more fulfilled lives.
Life priorities, right on. Life priorities.
And Bob Davis, yeah. I appreciate you coming on the Edge broadcast tonight. Any final thoughts or anything? You go right ahead. I know your arm hurts and it's late.
No, just I've been extremely tired throughout the conversation. I apologize for my sleepy appearance and loss of memory. I've had time slips along the way, pal. I truly have.
There you
But
go.
nevertheless, it was a pleasure speaking with you. You have a good handle on many of these important issues, and I commend you. I truly do. And if I may say so again, and your audience for interest in what I feel is the most one of the most important aspects of our times and life. And if you buy the book, my pleasure is that it stimulates thought. So I'm not out for the money at all.
That book, I have a link to your website in the bio section. Is it offered through your website or Amazon or both?
Yes, Amazon, certainly. My website, bobdavisspeaks.com, bobdavisspeaks.com.
Okay.
You can get more information about this book, myself, and thank you very much for saying some nice things about it. And again, if it provokes thought, and it obviously provoked this discussion, hey, I think that's very spiritual. I think that's very healthy. If I may, I don't mean to be a little corny about it, but let's face it. I think people should be talking more about this than maybe the stock market or sales at Walmart or you get it. You get it. Let's derive happiness, pleasure from more important sources, spiritual ways, more so than we do allocate effort to achieving certain priorities in life. And it's hard to do. I'm not saying I do at all.
Yeah, no,
I need to do a better job at it for sure.
We have to unlearn. When we unlearn, then we learn.
You're right. Very good. We are reinforced, unfortunately, to
right.
look at these priorities wrongly. Correct.
Okay. Well, Bob, I'll tell you what, we got a lot of positive comments about you in both of our chats. They really love you. Can we have you on again sometime?
Anytime. I would appreciate that invitation very much. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Bob. Thanks for coming on the show.